Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the World Affairs Council. Ni hao. Thank you. Shishi. Those are my 2 words. I'm out of practice. It's been far too long since I've had the opportunity to travel to China. I'm Lauren Swartz, the President and CEO at the World Affairs Council of Philadelphia. We are an international affairs experience provider with 70 years of expertise in making connections for Philadelphia, making connections for you to the world around us. We have an international travel program. We go to every continent, about 30 trips every year. We bring world affairs education into about 85 schools, reaching 300 middle school and high school students every year. We have a professional development program that teaches area business leaders whether they should kiss, bow, shake hands, or something else all together. Last week, in fact, in this room, we held a cultural diplomacy dinner, teaching business people how to enjoy a Chinese business dinner, how to use chopsticks, what to do if you don't know how to use chopsticks, when to negotiate and when to ask for more and how to ask for less. We also have an international speaker program, and this is what you are participating in tonight. Welcome to Diplochat, China. As you hear in the name, Diplochat, this is our program where we take a diplomat. We invite an honored guest who's a diplomat, a representative of their foreign government, and bring them here for a conversation, a chat with Philadelphians. So you can ask your questions, they can give answers, and we're in a less formal setting. This is at the heart of people-to-people diplomacy. It's at the heart of citizen diplomacy. We want you all to have the opportunity to connect with leaders, decision makers, and influencers around the world so you too can participate in world affairs. And this relationship that we share with China as Americans, as Pennsylvanians, as Philadelphians, as residents and students and visitors is critical. We know that the 2 largest powers in the world have so much to work together on, so much opportunity, and we're facing a time of tension and challenge too. Continuing to open doors, to do business and trade, to travel, to teach and learn, and to have cultural diplomacy by sending musicians or even just listening to music if we can't go, is so important to sustain this world's most important relationship. You being here tonight is a part of that process. So thank you for joining us. Our Diplochat series over this year has been made possible by the Satell Family Foundation. We thank Ed Satell and his family for joining us tonight and for their long-term support and leadership on our board of directors to continue to infuse opportunity for Philadelphians to connect with people around the world. A bit of programming and housekeeping notes for this evening. There's a digital program book. There's a QR code on the table outside. You can also find the program book with Ambassador Huang's biography and additional information at our website, wacphila.org. The format for tonight's program is relatively simple. When I'm finished with my opening remarks, we'll invite Mr. Ed Satell up to the podium to introduce our honored guest, Ambassador Huang. Ambassador Huang will also give an opening statement, and then we'll sit in conversation with one another and with you. When you're ready to ask your questions, please raise your hand and use the microphone. We do have an online audience joining us virtually as well, and they'll be able to hear you as well as your other colleagues in this room if we use the microphones. We are on social media. Feel free to follow us, post your thoughts, and share your pictures at WACPHL. Tonight, masks are optional in our venue space. If you're comfortable wearing a mask, please do so. And now it is my honor to introduce our colleague and friend and mentor and supporter, Mr. Ed Satell. Ed has been a fan of and participate in world affairs through the Council for many, many years. And through the support of his family foundation, the Satell Family Foundation, our annual Diplochat series has been made possible. Please join me in thanking Ed and welcoming him to the stage.
Well, good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's so wonderful to see all of you here, both in person, and we have an online audience, too. for tonight's meaningful event, the final installment in 2022 of the Satell Family Diplochat series. I have come to find that the World Affairs Council is exceptionally good at two things. First, educating middle and high school students about global perspectives and cross-cultural skills in a nonpartisan way. Second, providing speaker events like tonight's that give adult audiences the opportunity to go ahead and to meet, hear, and personally question leading government officials in the United States and from countries around the world. My name is Ed Satell, and I have the pleasure of being involved with the Council as a supporter and a board member for more than 25 years. That just makes me older than most of you. In all those years, what I have found to be most unique and valuable about the Council is the educational access these programs present to Philadelphians and guests in other parts of the country too, to the thought leaders, policymakers, and tonight, diplomats who shape our world. The access is vital to an informed citizenry, and it has never been more important or more impactful than now. That is why I am thrilled with this series presenting outstanding and international diplomats to Philadelphia and named for the Satell Family Foundation. I'm delighted to give the introduction to tonight's honored guest. Ambassador Ping Huang is the Consul General of the People's Republic of China in New York and has served in that role since 2018. Before assuming his current duties, Ambassador of the People's Republic of China, he was the ambassador to the People's Republic of China to the Republic of Zimbabwe from 2015 to 2018. He has also served as the Director General, Department of Consular Affairs of the Chinese Foreign Ministry from 2010 to 2015, and then again, Deputy Mayor of Shaoxing City in the province from 2002 to 2004. So as you can see, he's had a distinguished career that going from one spot to the other, always rising to a higher level within the system. Ambassador Huang will share the expertise tonight, share his expertise on the China-U.S. relations with China, and also the Philadelphia friendship and cooperation, so, as well as other topics of interest to our audience tonight. Ambassador Huang, I invite you to make your opening remarks, after which we'll turn to some Q&A, questions and other discussion, and with the audience participating, and facilitated by Lauren Schwartz. It's a pleasure to welcome you here, and I welcome you to the podium.
Let me help. Yes, careful.
I got it. Good, thank you.
Let's go to you. You sure? You okay? Go. Thank you very much for the wonderful introduction. The Consul General, as introduced, in New York, but I also served as a Consul General in Chicago from 2008 to 2010. And this is my fourth time to come to work in the North America, third time to the United States of America, because I got 3 years in Canada, in Ottawa, as a counselor for 3 years. So, ladies and gentlemen, good evening, and it is my great pleasure to be invited to this Diplochat today. I feel so happy to meet friends, old and new. This is my, as I said, third time to work in the United States of America. Before I came to New York, I've been posted in Zimbabwe, Chicago, and Ottawa, Washington, D.C. too, in the 80s when I was in my 20s. Every time when I was in a different place, I like to explore the local history and the culture, which helps me to better understand the different systems and development paths of each country. The history of the U.S. starts from Philadelphia. The Independence Hall and the Liberty Bell here represents the history and the spirit of the U.S., allowing people to better understand this country. Meanwhile, China enjoys thousands of years of history. How to understand China? Where will China head to in the future? These are the questions that people may be interested in. I would like to share my views on those based on the development stories of 4 different cities in China. First, people will see the confident and the self-reliant China from the city of Beijing. That's the capital city. Beijing is rich in historical and cultural heritage of Chinese civilization and has witnessed China's dramatic changes since the founding of the People's Republic of China. By adapting Marxism to the Chinese conditions and to the traditional Chinese culture, the Communist Party of China, we call CPC, successfully led the Chinese people to gain national independence and liberation. Eventually, China found the right path toward prosperity and strength. The 20th National Congress of the Communist Party of China just concluded. This is a time we didn't know this before we planned this in Beijing. And President Xi Jinping's report at the opening session, he introduced the historic achievements over the past decade. President Xi emphasized that the central task of the CPC will be now to lead the Chinese people of all ethnic groups in a concerted work to realize the second centenary goal of building China into a great modern socialist country in all respects, and to advance the rejuvenation of the Chinese nation on all fronts through a Chinese path to modernization. This ground blueprint demonstrates Chinese people's strong confidence in the country's development path and the prospects. A Chinese path to modernization, this is very new, is a socialist modernization pursued under the leadership of the CPC. It contains elements that are common to the modernization process of all countries, but it is more characterized by features that are unique to Chinese context. The path we pursue is one of the peace and the development, not one of plunder and colonialism. It is a path of win-win cooperation, not one of zero-sum games. And it is one of the harmony between man and nature, not one of destructive exploitation of resources. This path is in line with China's national conditions, conforms to the trend of the times, and have written a Chinese answer sheet to many problems in the process of modernization. Nowadays, some people deliberately provoke ideological confrontation between China and the U.S. They identify China as a primary rival and the most serious long-term challenge, and hype the China threat theory, which is a misunderstanding and a misjudgment of China's institutions and development intentions. Traditional Chinese culture stresses moderation and humility. China's development and revitalization has a clear historical logic and a strong endogenous driving force. The 1.4 billion Chinese people moving toward modernization and common prosperity is a huge process for mankind. Our goal is to become a better version of ourselves and to make the world a better place because of China. As the Chinese old saying goes, just as heaven maintains vigor through movement, a gentleman should constantly strive for self-perfection. China will continue to follow its chosen path and direction and will forge ahead steadily along the path toward greater success. Second, people will see China's people-centered development from Guizhou province. Guizhou is my hometown, which is located in the southwestern part of China, very far, remote, mountainous area. And it was once the province with the largest number of poor people in China. In the past decade, Guizhou has ranked first in China in terms of poverty alleviation. People of all ethnic groups were lifted out of poverty and lived a happy life. The development of Guizhou is a microcosm of tremendous changes in many Chinese cities and towns. We have won the largest battle against the poverty in human history and has met the poverty reduction goal of the UN 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development 10 years ahead of schedule. We have built the world's largest social security network and compulsory educational system. With a new version of development featuring innovative, coordinated, green, open, and shared development, Chinese people have green mountains and lucid waters, which are indeed mountains of gold and silver. The people-centered philosophy of development allows more and fair benefits to all the people in the modernization process. Some people are propagating fallacies such as genocide and forced labor in Xinjiang, which is another multi-ethnic region of China. By the way, Guizhou, my hometown, has more than 26 minority nationalities there. So it's people from different ethnic group living there. This is a malicious smear of China's human rights philosophy, development philosophy, and achievements. The state respects and safeguards human rights has been written into Chinese constitution. Improving people's sense of happiness, gain, and security is our goal. For more than 60 years since the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region was established, the region's economy has grown 160 times. The Uyghur population expanded from 2.2 million to about 12 million. Where can you find such a so-called genocide? Workers of all ethnic backgrounds in Xinjiang are free to choose their occupations and fully enjoy the protection of their labor rights and remuneration. In contrast, the sanction measures taken by the U.S. towards Xinjiang are creating forced unemployment and forcing Xinjiang returning to poverty. The people are the foundation of a country, and only when the people lead a good life can the country thrive. China's development is for the people, by the people, and with the people, sharing in its fruits. We will continue to meet the people's ever-growing needs for a better life so that everyone can share the opportunity to live a brilliant life and make their dreams come true. Third, people will see an open and inclusive China from Shanghai. That's the largest city in China. Shanghai is a place where the first National Congress of the CPC was held, and it is also at the forefront of China's reform and opening up. From the development of Pudong to the Shanghai Pilot Free Trade Zone, from the World Expo to China International Import Expo, Shanghai has witnessed China's opening up and the mutually beneficial cooperation with the world in a larger scope to wide areas and at deeper levels. China's market has become a market for the world, and a market shared by all, and a market accessible to all. Shanghai has also witnessed the normalization of China-U.S. relations. This year marks the 50th anniversary of the issuance of a Shanghai Communique. It shows the wisdom of agreed to disagree. The elder generation of leaders of both countries realized that despite their differences, neither side had the intention to change the other. Both sides hoped to conduct a cooperation based on shared interests. The core of the Shanghai Communique is a Taiwan question, and the one China principle is a cornerstone of China-U.S. relations. Guided by the spirit of Shanghai Communique, China and the United States have achieved a series of major progress in their relations. The way for China and the U.S. to get along in the new era is also enshrined in Shanghai Communique. President Xi Jinping put forward the three principles of mutual respect, peaceful coexistence, and win-win cooperation. The three principles are not only furtherance of the historical experience, but also basic principle that should be jointly followed in the way forward. Recently, the U.S. House Speaker and other government officials visit to the Taiwan region, as well as the U.S. Congress reviewing the Taiwan Policy Act of 2022, gravely undermined the political foundation of China-U.S. relations. If you put yourself in others' shoes, let's say if an American state were to secede from the U.S., and then some other nation provided weapons and political support to the state, would the U.S. government and the people allow it? History brooks no falsification, and what is right and or wrong should not be distorted. We hope that the United States should honor its political commitment to China. Ancient Chinese philosophy teaches us to both strengthen ourselves and help others where possible. We will firmly adhere to win-win strategy of opening up and provide more development opportunities globally to share the fruits of China's development. We will always be committed to the foreign policy goals of upholding world peace and promoting common development and promote coordination between major countries. As two countries with different social systems, history, and culture, we need to view our relations in a broader perspective and a more inclusive attitude, and to choose dialogue over confrontation, cooperation over conflict, openness over seclusion, and integration over decoupling. Fourth, people will see a warm and friendly China from Tianjin. Tianjin is also it's a second largest city, close to Beijing, one of the biggest ones. Shortly after the establishment of diplomatic relations between China and the U.S., Tianjin and Philadelphia became sister cities. The Chinatown Arch in Philadelphia is a symbol of the friendship. Philadelphia's exchange and cooperation with China have a deep historical origin. In 1973, the Philadelphia Orchestra visited China for the first time. Chinese people began to learn Western music from its performance. Mayor Kenny once told me that Chinese has become the third most common language in Philadelphia. The stories of people-to-people exchanges between Philadelphia and China are the footnotes of the friendship between the Chinese and American people. The two countries have established 50 pairs of sister states and 333 pairs of sister cities. Before COVID-19 pandemic, more than 300 flights shuttled between the two countries every week. Over 5 million travels were made across the Pacific every year, and more than 400,000 Chinese students studying in the U.S. By the way, we still have like 300,000. In recent years, affected by the political atmosphere of the U.S. toward China under the pandemic, the friendly exchanges between China and the United States have encountered a countercurrent. Some people in the U.S. have politicized the issues such as science and technology, economy and trade, as well as education, which impact local mutually beneficial cooperation. However, the desire of the two peoples for peace, development, exchange, and cooperation is unstoppable. We are willing to work with you to promote exchanges at subnational levels and between cities and the people to strengthen the bond of friendship between China and the U.S. Good friends feel close even when they are thousands of miles apart. We will continue to build a bridge of friendship for greater affinity and mutual understanding. We'd like to work with all countries to make every effort for peace and development, shoulder the responsibilities of solidarity and progress, build a community with a shared future for mankind, and embrace an even better world. Ladies and gentlemen, the above 4 stories are just a few small waves in the tide of China's development. I hope that after the pandemic, you can all go to China to study, work, travel, and see different dimensions of China by yourself. And you are always welcome to visit our consulate. I will be the audience, and you will be the speakers. I look forward to hearing about China in your eyes and your stories with China. With this, I thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ambassador Huang.
Thank you.
Our travel director is here, so anyone who wants to go to China can see Shoshana. We've been going to China as the World Affairs Council for decades, and we'll continue to do so.
Yes.
I know our audience has many questions for you, and I'd like to start with what's in the news. You and I were conversing when you arrived that when we planned this date, we didn't quite realize that the Communist Party Congress would have just taken place last week. And normally when you prepare for these things or I prepare for these things, we do the reading and the current events, and there's been a lot of reading to do in the past few days. Unmistakably, this is a domestic conference. It's the Communist Party conference focusing on the future of China. Mm-hmm. Unmistakably, the whole world is watching and listening and digesting. From your view, what are the top few things that you think an international audience, an American audience, should pick up from the developments of last week?
Yeah, as everybody have watched, the most important Congress right now, we call the 20th National Congress for the CPC, has just concluded. And to tell the truth, I'm still digesting. Because the content is so richful. President Xi delivered the opening remarks. Basically, I think he has made the blueprint for China's future development. So my understanding, there are a few things to get to the points of that. Number one is we have entered a new era, which means we have just finished the first centenary goal of building we call the moderately prosperous society in all respects. What does that mean? That means we have got enough to feed our people, keep them warm, let them have the money to send the kids to school so they can live a good life right now. That was a dream realized for the long history of China. We've been trying very hard in history to feed the people with such a large population. It was not an easy job. In all these years, we managed to get 800 million people out of absolute poverty, 800 million. That's a huge, I think, remarkable achievement. But that's not enough. Right now, the per capita GDP for Chinese people is a little bit just above the world average, which is a little bit more than 12,000 US dollars per capita GDP. What's your per capita GDP? It's like 70,000. So there is a huge big gap between the per capita GDP of Chinese people and American people. So we are far away from, this job of providing people with a better life. We are still in the process, So this is very important. President Xi put the blueprint for the next 30 years, like in 2 steps. We will try to build China into a basically modernized country in 2035. 2035, so almost 50 years from now. And then after that, we will continue to work to build China into our modernization in 2050, something like that. What does it mean? 2050 is a version. China will be a society of which is prosperous, which is strong, which is democratic, which is culturally, it's a civilized, culturally advanced, and which is a peaceful harmony between nature and mankind, and which is beautiful. So that's a dream. That's the national rejuvenation of the Chinese nation. At that time, I don't know what exactly China's per capita GDP will be, but we want that figure to be on par with this middle advanced Western countries, like 40,000 or something like that, He didn't see that, I said, okay. it's in the middle. We're still far away from the US standard, So when you hear this, what do you get? That's a blueprint for the future development. I think there are a few signals coming out. Number one, China will focus on its economic build-up in the next 30 years. We will focus on that because we're not there. The founding mission of the Communist Party has yet to be delivered or finished. We're only halfway there. So we will focus on our economic development. That's one thing, very important. We're not expanding, or we are not trying to dominate the world. We are trying everything to provide our people with a better life, which is still not enough in compare with American standard by the year 2050. And the second message it come out is China will keep its door open and open even wider. Why? Because you want to build up your economy, you have to engage. You have to work with other parts of the world. Closing door policy will not return because we have learned from the past 70 years, especially past 30 years, since the founding of the People's Republic in 1949 to 1979. First 30 years, China were not open. We are isolated from the outside world. We did not develop well. I was born in the 60s. I remember those old days when we couldn't get enough to eat. We couldn't get enough to everyday life use. Government had to issue the coupons. So you want to buy almost anything by using the coupons, which is very limited. So the economy at that time in China was very bad. And by the end of the 1970s, it was at the brink of the bankruptcy. That's why when Deng Xiaoping came to power, he abandoned this. He said China must open its door to embrace the world, to work with the world, to develop its economy. So we did. And we started to reform, get everything ready for the openness. And then we opened our door, we started to engage. We started to work with outside the world. And look what happened. After 40 years, China came from nowhere, become the second largest economy in the whole world. And people's living have been greatly elevated. So we have learned, if China is to develop itself, we have to work with the outside world rather than closing its door and work by itself. It will not work. Which means we will open this door. And the third one is by saying that we don't have enough means we have a huge opportunity. If we want to lift the life standard from like per capita GDP 12,000 to 40,000, for example, that's a huge big opportunity for everybody to participate. Remember, China has a population of 1.4 billion. For 1.4 billion people to lift their living standard for 1%, it means you've got a lot of job to do. There are lots of opportunities there. So we will open this market for everybody. We welcome foreign investors to come to China. We welcome everybody to come and share the Chinese market. The opportunities are for everybody. So back at home, as we say, we are now opening in a new kind of philosophy. The high standard of opening up is not just open the door, but we have to get everything ready. For example, we need the new laws. We need to further cut the negative list to make the market more accessible. We need to create more conditions to make the market or the Chinese market more friendly to attract the foreign investment and all those things. So if you follow what has been happening all these years, you see the Shanghai Expo. We have successfully hosted for 4 years already. Shanghai Expo, it's an import expo. It's unlike the expo in Guangdong. That's something we promote the trade. You know, China wants to sell products to outside world. But the Shanghai Import Expo means we want to open the market, we want to buy products and services from outside. And that has been very successful. And if you hear about the pilot zones for economic development, we have more than 20 of them already. So we've been preparing this market for high standard opening up. So I would like to send my invitation to all the companies in Philadelphia and in Pennsylvania to share this market with us. I think that's a very important, the three messages coming from here.
If China triples its per capita income in 15 or 20 years, it'll transform the economy in China and certainly the world. If I know this audience, you all have many questions. Ambassador Huang has graciously covered the history of China, the People's Congress, Taiwan, business, trade, diplomacy, politics. So I'd like to see if there's some questions from our audience members here today.
We have a question to start from, we have a group of students online, about 10 students from Tredyffrin Easttown Middle School, and we have a few questions from some of those students. We always like to start our programs with some questions from our middle and high school students. So the first question is, in your opinion, Consul General, what are the most important things to maintain as a relationship between two different countries? And then the second question is, are schools able to visit the Chinese embassy and the consulate as field trips?
I will start from the second one. Very easy, because as a Consul General, I should say yes. So if you want to visit the consulate, in New York, you are always welcome. Let us know, and we'll make a schedule.
Fantastic.
Make some appointment, then we will do that.
We work with 85 schools, so
Okay.
we'll go slow, like one a week.
Yes. I have a few people there working for this, so get in touch with them and let me know when do you want to come. And the first one, I think the most important thing to maintain a good relation for two countries, especially, let's say, China and the U.S. We're so different. We differ from history, culture, value, and many other things. For us to maintain good relationship, I think President Xi has said that very clearly. Number one, we need to have a mutual respect. Mutual respect. I don't expect you to look me up, but please don't look me down. Okay? See me as an equal partner. Mutual respect. We haven't got that, by the way. Then second, it's a peaceful coexistence. This world is big enough to accommodate everybody, accommodate all countries on this world. So we need to work together, seeking for the peaceful coexistence with everybody to build a community with a shared future for everyone. And the third one is a win-win cooperation. You should follow this, because why? So no matter how different two countries could be, you can always find there's a common interest there. So please don't try to change the other country. All countries are different. It's different because it came from different culture, history, and all those things. It's not possible to try to change it. Just live with it peacefully and focus your attention on the common interests, like China and the U.S. When we we knew we were different. 50 years ago, when President Nixon went to China, 50 years ago, when we start to engage or re-engage each other, we knew we were different. So this story between China and the U.S. is a typical story of agree to disagree. We were different, we knew that. We managed those differences in a proper way. In the meantime, we focus our attention on the common interest. That's how we had those 5 million people flying across the Pacific. That's how we have this trade value going so up. Last year, it's $750 billion US. Last year, with this pandemic hanging up there, with this deterioration of the relationship, we still got the trade volume going to the historical high, which means we have the common interest, right? And we got this mutual investment. Mutual investment that goes to $240 billion US. That's how we get those 400,000 students starting here, and more than 20,000 US students are going to China before the pandemic. We want to have all those things back, and I believe we can if we follow this mutual respect, peaceful coexistence, focus our attention on win-win cooperation. We can do that for any two countries, U.S. and China.
Indeed.
The same thing.
More questions from the audience? I see Rogelio's hand up first. Shoshana will bring a microphone to you. Thank you.
Hello. So
Yes.
first of all, Ambassador Huang, welcome to Philadelphia. Thank you so much for coming and talking to us. I'm Rogelio Miñana. I'm originally from Spain, but I'm at Drexel University. I have several colleagues with me here representing different departments.
Yeah.
And thinking about the win-win cooperation that you mentioned at the end, how can the Chinese government work with U.S. universities, U.S. institutions to build partnerships that work and that benefit, as you said, it's a win-win situation for everybody, benefit both countries and the world?
Yeah. Education is a very important section or field where China and the U.S. can work. As I said, before the pandemic, when the situation was very good, we got 400,000 students coming from China. Lots of them are here in Philadelphia, in all those universities, Drexel, UPenn. I've been there. Even with this pandemic and deterioration of the relationship, we still had 300,000 students from China studying here in the U.S. And last year, U.S. embassies and the consulates, according to the report, they issued more than 100,000 visas for Chinese students. Having said this, we also encounter lots of problems. As you can see, some politicians have overstretched the concept of national security. Former president sent the order. It's 10043. It's still there. President Biden didn't change that. 1043, banning Chinese students from coming to the U.S. to study in the STEM course, from the STEM courses. So you got the law there. And you see cases where professors of Chinese origin have been prosecuted and accused, and students from China who have studied in this country for a couple of years, they went back for vacation and then couldn't come back. They got a phone call say, your visa has been canceled for no reason. Why? No reason. Some got the visa, but on their way to the U.S., they were stopped at the custom and, they were told to go back. So last year, we got more than 5,000 students, STEM course students, who just, couldn't get the visa. These are something harmful to enhance, the exchange on education fields. I think this is not right. This is not in the interest of the Chinese students, not in the interest of America. Because those with the brilliant brains from China, young, vigor, they choose to come to the U.S. because they trust you. Because they believe you have the best education here. That's why they come. But if they got scared, if they feel there's uncertainty, even after a couple of years of being here, they still get this visa canceled. They feel there's uncertainty. They might go somewhere, like England, like Australia, and the number of Chinese students going to England and Australia are growing dramatically since 1 or 2 years ago. So I would like to see, maybe we cannot go back to exactly the same situation before the pandemic, but I hope the government of this country will not overstretch this concept. They're just young students. Most of them will choose to stay in this country because they like it. And they are young, it's highly talented, they can do a lot of things to contribute to the build-up of this country. And they're not spies. They're not bad guys.
I saw a few other hands pop up. We've got a few more minutes. We've got a question here in the front with Art. The microphone will come to you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Art Friedman. I'm a member of the council that's interested in things. So in 1997, Hong Kong became part of China. And I don't think that went the way anybody hoped it would go. But now we have a situation in Taiwan. And I wonder if you can think of a scenario where the people of Taiwan will be happy and the government of China will be happy.
Yeah. Taiwan is a part of China. There's no question about this. Taiwan has never, ever been a country in history. So Taiwan is part of China. No question for that. U.S. recognized that. And all the countries, almost all the countries, more than 180 countries are having diplomatic relations with China, recognize that. So one China principle is a political foundation for all the relations between China and all the countries. But right now, the problem is some people in Taiwan are advocating Taiwan independence. They want Taiwan to be separated from the mainland. this is something we cannot allow. Why? Because it's sovereignty, it's territorial integrity. Sovereignty and the territorial integrity are the core interest of any country. It's not just China's core interest. Solidarity and territorial integrity. You have to have that. China is now the only major power, major country, which hasn't got the complete reunification. So because of the domestic issues, Taiwan is still there. We will do everything possible using the utmost sincerity to have a peaceful reunification. But we cannot guarantee not to use any other means should some people try to cut Taiwan off from China. Either it's from Taiwan itself or either it's from outside other countries.
Is there a timeline on that effort, moving from a peaceful effort into other tools?
That's beyond my knowledge. I don't think so. We will do everything we can to have. You know why? Because people in Taiwan are all brothers and sisters. We speak the same language, we share the same value, we have the lifestyle, almost everything. Yeah, what is this? We're same as brothers and sisters. We had a terrible civil war. We don't want to see that anymore, in any sense. In any sense. So we do everything there, but we cannot allow anybody to go ahead with Taiwan independence. That's not possible.
Ambassador Huang, we've got time for one more question. Shoshana, there's a gentleman right next to you.
Good evening. Thank you for coming. So, over the last, as you point out, over the last 40 years, the United States has ceded much of their industrial base to China for manufacturing. We started out as an assembly, as manufacturing, and then as engineering. What advice do you have back for the United States? As we are, as a percentage GDP, we're much higher than where you are in China, but yet we're declining to some nature for a vast majority of Americans. So what advice do you have for America as to what you would do to bring back this manufacturing to the United States? Why shouldn't we?
Yeah. American companies have been to China in all those years since China opened its market. Right now, the number is more than 70,000. More than 75,000 American companies are actually operating in China. And the investment, the return for the investment is like a 14.9% or something, much higher than the average return of American investment in other countries. In other countries, it's like 9% or something like that. So this tells itself, speak for itself. Investing in China is profitable. Now, they're making money. That's why they are there.
But it's,
Yeah, I can hear you.
okay, but I would just say that what has happened really in the United States is kind of a dichotomy. So yes, there's some, that profit greatly from, from that transaction. You're absolutely right. But at the same time, you either got two choices. You have all these people that you can have unemployed, and then we have to tax a few at a very heavy rate to subsidize those that are now unemployed, versus having those jobs in the United States, maybe experiencing greater inflation, but at the same time having much more people employed, just as you found in China, taking them from the farms to the factories. So why shouldn't the United States be doing that as opposed to continue to invest in China?
I believe, if I get you right, I think the U.S. shouldn't do anything to stop this investment. Investing in China is profitable. That's why all those companies are going there. And, you want them back because of what?
Build the economic base in the United States. There's a lot of people in the United States that don't benefit from the output.
Yeah, they went there because it's more profitable, and if they come back, the products they produce will be too expensive. You want to buy that? If you can get a product at a much cheaper price, why should you buy the expensive one? The labor cost here, it's very, very expensive. And the way, you want to move that, you want that companies to come back also has a cost. So this world, the perception is very important. This globalization is a trend of this world. We don't like this, how do you say, the unilateralism, protectionism. Businessmen don't like that, right? So if you keep going with this globalization, companies from the U.S. or companies from China, we move freely to the markets where we can make more money, right? Chinese companies are also here, lots of them. Philadelphia is a place with second largest Chinese investment in Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania here, second largest in compare with all the other states. In my council district, 10 states, I know a lot of companies from China, like the one manufacturing the cars, the Orange Line in Boston. This company is now in Springfield. They are delivering. They hired more than 2,000 people, and they're working day and night manufacturing those cars in Boston, Orange Line, Red Line now, and they want to compete with Philadelphia's double-deck car and the rail. They're really good. 99% of the employees are local people. They only got a few from China. And that one called the Fuyao Glass in Ohio, I've been there twice. They hired more than 2,000 people there, and they invested more than $600 million US, manufacturing all those cars, glasses for car use. People like them. I talked with American workers, the local workers inside the factory. They all like them. This is a very good investment, and everybody benefits. So by allowing the capital flow freely, everybody benefits. So we should keep this going. If they are operating in China very well, why should you ask them to come back? Actually, they're not listening to them.
A complex conversation and issue. I know it's very prominent in our country as well as in China, where the future of trade and investment will go, and with the rising GDP in China and the economic changes in every market around the world right now. I think the whole world is looking at both of us.
Yes.
Not you and me, hopefully. That's too much pressure for us. Too much for one Diplochat. But the opportunity to find ways to work together is critical for our shared future.
Yes, exactly.
I know there are many more questions in our audience. Unfortunately, that is all we have time for tonight. Please join me in thanking Ambassador Huang.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And thank you to the Satell Family Foundation for making the Diplochat program possible for us this evening. I hope you all enjoyed it, and we'll see you again at future council programming. On Wednesday night, we have the one and only Chris Matthews joining us here in Philadelphia for an evening discussion. He's a Philadelphia hometown person who has gone all over the world, met many sitting presidents, been in many countries for the fall of the Berlin Wall, the Peace Corps in Africa, and he will talk to us about his new memoir. Everyone who attends will receive a signed copy of his book. That's Wednesday this week. On November 10th, we have an ambitiously titled program, What Just Happened in the Midterms. We hope that by November 10th we know what just happened in the midterms. And we are partnering with KYW News Radio for an in-studio program at Odyssey Studios on 24th and Market. We'll talk about the local and global impact of what just happened in the midterms. And on December 13th, we have our annual World Affairs Salon, a holiday celebration celebrating our merger with another organization in Philadelphia, Citizen Diplomacy International, bringing our board members, our guests, our partners together for a wonderful night of World Affairs. Thank you for joining us tonight. I could ask one more favor. We'll send you a survey, an email after this. If you fill it out, we will continue to have better programming for you. If you don't fill it out, we'll have to make it up. So please tell us what you think. Thank you, Shishi.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ambassador Huang. That was wonderful.